WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Banjul and hour late in Praia, 1 p.m. in Abuja and Niamey. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Open Society Foundation launches Africa-led initiative to address emerging challenges.
The problems we're seeing in the world today, be it climate change or a pandemic or the global rise of authoritarianism, require coordination and cooperation across borders to support regional efforts, be it around peace or democracy or economics.
Opposition denounces electoral fraud in Togo's municipal elections as ruling party secures majority seats, and Nigerian doctors threaten nationwide strike if government fails to meet demand by July 23.
We reject this new circular in its entirety. Our demands include an immediate withdrawal of the circular on review of allowances for medical and dental officers. Number 2, an immediate correction of consequential adjustments.
And public debate intensifies in Côte d'Ivoire over possible alternatives for main opposition political parties whose leaders remain ineligible ahead of October presidential elections. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Christopher Aticho with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to our listeners within and beyond the Sahel region. This edition of Newslink begins in Togo with some electoral development where the opposition parties are denouncing electoral fraud and alleging that the recent municipal elections were manipulated in favor of the ruling party. According to provisional results released on Monday by the Independent National Electoral Commission (SENI), the ruling party Union for the Republic (UNI) secured a majority of the municipal seats, constituting 75% of the total municipalities. More than 3 million registered voters went to the polls on July 17 to elect over 1,000 municipal councillors. But the publication of the results, electoral observation missions evaluated the electoral process and issued a series of recommendations aimed at improving future elections in Togo.
According to the provisional results of the Independent National Electoral Commission, the UNIR party won 1,150 council seats out of just over 1,500. The main opposition party, the National Alliance for Change ANC, only managed to secure 3% of the seats at stake, or 51. Other political parties and independent candidates shared the remaining 326 seats. Yao Bula Agbo is a member of the ruling UNIR party.
It's an exceptional achievement. As usual, we are a party that leads. We have our own orientations. We have our own status that we respect. What we want is for all Togolese to live happily and content in their country. These elections have been held in peace and security at all levels, and we are very happy about that.
Meanwhile, the opposition denounces electoral fraud and a vote tailored to favor the ruling party. Brigitte Ajamagbo Johnson is the coordinator of the opposition Dynamics for the People's Majority, DMP.
This regime has once again demonstrated that even by elections, it is indestructible. Speaking of elections, because we have seen once again scenes of outrage. We have seen the manipulation of the scrutiny. They organized themselves in gangs.
However, other opponents prefer to put things into perspective and hope to achieve a better score in the upcoming elections. Gabriel Sassovi-Doze Aniron is a candidate of the NID party.
We had a very high rate of abstentions. I believe that in the future, elections will even be better, so that the rooting of democracy takes place in our country. As for the elections, we need to start again and create awareness to bring the population to a change of behavior as far as the well-founded elections are concerned.
The provisional results must now be transmitted to the Supreme Court for validation. Political parties and independent groups can file appeals to contest the results of the Independent National Electoral Commission, (SENI).
A report by WADR's correspondent in Lome, CV Wadr, and voiced by Imo Edit. More on electoral matters, but in Côte d'Ivoire, public debate is intensifying over possible alternatives for the main opposition political parties, whose leaders' candidates remain ineligible for the October 25, 2025 presidential elections. With just 3 months to go before the polls, former President Laurent Gbagbo of the PPACI and Tijani Chiam of the PDCI are still stripped from running. In response, some party executives and members are urging their political institutions to consider alternatives candidates to represent them in the upcoming elections. This situation is also drawing strong reaction from eligible voters who are closely monitoring the electoral process. Sankole Janko reports.
The PPACI and the PDCI are gathering sponsorships for their designated candidates, Laurent Gbagbo and Tijani Chiam. Hit by a court decision, the two political leaders are so far ineligible for the October presidential polls. While their respective parties are calling for all the candidates to be open to alternatives, the leadership of their respective political parties has reiterated that they will be the only candidates. For this old man in the streets of Abidjan, who is following this situation closely, the decision of both parties is the right direction. In any party, the opponents think there is no plan B, because plan B is not the reliable school of politics. The PPACI and the PDCI are currently maintaining their positions. Laurent Gbagbo and Tijani Chiam aim to be the candidates of their political parties in the presidential election next October, even though they are not eligible.
Sankole Janko with details of that report by WADR's correspondent Marcel Aristoble in Abidjan. Back here in Senegal, the Open Society Foundation's OSF has launched an Africa-led initiative anchored on 3 key pillars. These are democratic future in Africa, resource future in Africa, and economic prosperity. Launched in Dakar on Monday, OSF says the long-term program have targeted outcomes to inspire change, provide opportunities, and even resource distribution among the continent's population. The project was announced at a press conference in Dakar, Senegal, by a high-powered OSF delegation including Dr. Alex Soros, chair of the board of directors, the president, Benifa Noroji, and the vice president. As Abdullah Hassan reports, the launch wrapped up a tour to Ghana and Senegal by the delegation that began last week.
The Open Society Foundation's OSF says the 3 programs initiative, Democratic Future in Africa, Resource Futures in Africa, and Economic Prosperity, launched in Dakar on Monday, are tailored to respond to emerging trends. Benifa Noroji is president, OSF.
The problems we're seeing in the world today, be it climate change or a pandemic or the global rise of authoritarianism, require coordination and cooperation across borders to support regional efforts, be it around peace or democracy or economics, where we put our shared humanity above transactional interests.
The programs will be implemented on a continent-wide approaches despite the conflict, fading democratic values, social injustice, and climate change, among other factors stalling Africa's growth. From DRC to Sudan, Somalia, and the Central Sahel region of West Africa, OSF is leaving no community behind. Benifa Noroji explains.
We understand it's a difficult landscape. It's a volatile world right now. And we are looking for the art of the possible, people who have the moral imagination to really be able to creatively reimagine a world that is full of rights, equity, and justice. And so where we find those individuals, organizations, institutions, government leaders, we will seek to partner with them. And the amount is less important to me than the shared values with which we will pursue these endeavors together.
OSF's new strategic initiative comes after the completion of a restructuring which the leadership says aims to adapt to modern-day challenges such as insecurity, political instability, and socio-economic predicaments. The Open Society Foundations has in the last 40 years disbursed more than $2 billion to over 50,000 organizations and individuals around the world, including Africa, to advance democracy, promote freedoms, protect rights, and ensure justice.
Abdullah Hassan filed the report.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let me take you to the Central Sahel region, particularly Mali, where the Malian Armed Forces farmer says they have neutralized Souleymane Ag Bakawa, a senior jihadist leader affiliated with the Islamic State IS. According to farmer, Bakawa was killed during a targeted operation in Chima, located in the northeastern Menaka region of Mali, well known as Sodat. Bakawa was reportedly involved in numerous kidnappings of civilians and targeted assassinations, both against security forces and civilians. Augustin Colley reports.
The announcement was made on Monday by Musa Ak Asharaton, Mali's transitional advisor and head of the Movement for the Salvation of Azawad, MSA. He stated that Souleymane Ak Bakawa was involved in the assassination of 2 police officers and MSA fighters in Menaka a few weeks ago. In addition, the jihadist leader executed several civilians, including local notable figures, and was implicated in the recent kidnapping of Sidi Bakar, the president of the civil society in Menaka. This neutralization follows a significant operation conducted by the Malian Armed Forces at the end of last June in the Gao region, which led to the arrest of Ibrahim Boubacar, a leader of the terrorist action group of the Islamic State in the Tisset sector of the Sahel region. Boubacar, also known as Ubel, was apprehended along with 10 of his men and their equipment. It is important to note that on June 5, 2025, approximately 40 Malian soldiers were killed in an ISIS attack in the Tisset sector, a common infiltration route for jihadist groups into neighboring countries, including Niger and Burkina Faso. The Malian General Staff described these series of operations as rigorously planned and professionally executed, reaffirming the farmers' unwavering commitment to defending the integrity of the national territory and eradicating all terrorist threats.
Augustin Colley filed the report. Away from the Central Sahel, but in Nigeria, the country's health sector may be heading towards a major disruption as the Nigerian Medical Association, NMA, warns of a nationwide strike if the federal government fails to meet its demand by July 23. The Doctors' Union says it has run out of patience over what it describes as unilateral and unfair decisions affecting medical professionals. WAD House Usma Omar in Abuja reports.
Tensions are rising across Nigeria's public health sector as the 21-day ultimatum issued by the Nigerian Medical Association, NMA, approaches its expiration date. This warning, set to elapse on Wednesday, July 23, 2025, was triggered by a controversial circular from the National Salaries, Income and Wages Commission. The circular revised allowances for medical and dental officers without what the Nigerian Medical Association describes as proper consultation. Professor Bala Audu is NMA president.
We reject this new circular in its entirety and demand a new circular that reflects previous agreements reached. The principles of fairness and justice must be applied in adjusting allowances as agreed in the past. We have also sent the correct table as requested by relevant organs of government. However, we are dismayed that what we did was discarded and we were never contacted in any discussion before the unilateral circularization.
The NMA insists that its demands are critical to safeguarding Nigeria's healthcare system and notes that morale among health workers continued to decline due to inconsistent policy decisions.
At this point, our demands include, but are not limited to, an immediate withdrawal of the circular on review of allowances for medical and dental officers in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, dated 27th June 2025. Number 2, an immediate correction of consequential adjustments in line with the agreements reached in 2001, 2009, and 2014 collective bargaining agreements.
In Katsina State, the local NMA chapter echoed national sentiments, issuing a strongly worded communique rejecting the wage circular and calling for its immediate withdrawal. The group warns that it cannot guarantee uninterrupted health services if the situation remains unresolved. As the clock ticks towards the deadline, the nation watches with concern, hoping that dialogue will prevail over disruption. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Omar reporting from Abuja.
You're still listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. We are also live on Facebook at WADR English Service, as well as YouTube at WADR News. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Open Society Foundation launches Africa-led initiative to address emerging challenges. Opposition denounces electoral fraud in Togo's municipal election as ruling party secures majority seats, and public debate intensifies in Côte d'Ivoire over possible alternatives for the main opposition political parties whose leaders remain ineligible ahead of the October presidential elections. And Nigerian doctors threaten nationwide strike if government fails to meet their demand by July 23. Still ahead in the news, Liberian government decentralizes passport services for the first time in many years. We do have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let me take you to Liberia, where the government has launched regional passport insurance hub or issuance hub in 2 of the country's 15 counties, marking a significant milestone in its national passport decentralization program. Spearheaded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the initiative aims to ease the burden on citizens, especially those in remote areas, by reducing congestion on the Central Passport Bureau in Monrovia. The new centers in Bong and Grand Geda counties are the first of several regional passport hubs set to be established under the decentralization program. WADR's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
During the launch of the passport hub in Wanga, President Joseph Boakai highlighted the significance of decentralization in promoting fairness and enhancing public service delivery. He stated that this initiative marks the beginning of a decentralized effort to ease the challenges for rural citizens who have to travel to Monrovia for passport services.
A step that will change lives, reduce suffering, and bring the government of Liberia closer. For far too long, ordinary Liberians, especially our market women, farmers, students, and small business owners, have been the heavy burden just to access one of their most basic rights, the right of identity. Across this country, too many people travel to Monrovia to apply for passport. And this is why we have embarked making sure it's not just talking. We are going to connect this country that people will be able to live.
Similarly, in Zweju, Grand Geda County, Foreign Minister Sarah Besto Yanti mentioned that the decentralized approach will help reduce financial and logistical burdens on vulnerable populations, allowing citizens to exercise their rights without unnecessary hardship.
Inclusion is a major strategy. Making sure everybody has access, everybody is involved. So even developing the program, we took the voices of people from around the country, the right to movement. These are all human rights. Passport is the formal way the whole world travels. Liberia will not be left behind.
With instituted security measures, the Zweju Center is outfitted with advanced biometric technology linked to the central database in Monrovia, ensuring secure and efficient passport processing. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Let's still stay a while longer with Abraham Parker in Monrovia for the press review.
This edition of Press Review from Monrovia begins with front page Africa newspaper. Looming constitutional crisis is a question being asked, and a follow-up to this is legal experts warn of shutdown at the Supreme Court if President Bouaka commissions Wese before yours exit. Still on front page, we are not ready as rainy season gets underway. Disaster agency goes unfunded with hundreds of thousands at risk. Our next stop is Daily Observer. Liberia Telecommunications Authority seeks to break MTN and Orange duopoly. New management advocates for a third telecom operator urges Senate to support market competition. African Development Bank president launches 17.8 million youth investment bank in Liberia today. And China commits to government's arrest agenda. Our last stop is the analyst newspaper. Smiles for voluntary health workers, 600 placed on official government payroll. Deputy Health Minister discloses. And critically ailing boy, 26, craze for medical support. Both legs risks amputation soon without goodwill people's help. Well, that does it for this edition of Press Review from Monrovia. Thanks so kindly for listening, and it's back to you in studio.
Thank you very much, Abraham Parker, for the press review in Monrovia.
Politics,
analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest interview this afternoon focuses on the African-led initiative launched by the Open Society Foundation's OSF, which is anchored on three major development key pillars: democratic future in Africa, resource future in Africa, and economic prosperity. Launched in Dakar on Monday, OSF says the long-term program have targeted outcomes to inspire change, provide opportunities, and even resource distribution among the continent's population. Our guest is the president of Open Society Foundation's Beniafa Noroji, and she shares more light on this new initiative.
Open Society Foundations is pleased to announce three bold Africa-led initiatives that are providing long-term support to the continent around various key issues that we feel are important for building a future in Africa that is peaceful, democratic, and just. These are not just ordinary programs, they're long-term investments. They're intended to promote democracy, peace, prosperity, and we want them to be based from the lived realities of people on the continent. So we don't come with a ready-made program that has an idea of what should be done, but in each country we will find like-minded individuals, institutions, and even government departments that want to promote human rights, equity, and justice.
So what are the 3 points?
The 3 programs are Democratic Futures in Africa, and that one is really to reimagine politics and governance, to ensure that governments are actually accountable to their people and actually are thinking about the principle of Ubuntu and a shared humanity moving forward. The second program is a program called Resource Futures in Africa, looking at the immense wealth that Africa has but doesn't benefit from. Africa basically ends up not benefiting from its natural resources and ends up actually paying more in debt in terms of interest than other places in the world. We also have a program called Economic Prosperity that works around helping governments to think about new economic models and creating new jobs. And our last initiative is looking at the dangers we are seeing right now with backsliding. As young people are disillusioned with what they're seeing and they don't see a future for themselves, countries are becoming destabilized and actually falling into conflict. We are very worried about the situation in the Sahel, in Sudan, conflict in DRC. How is it that we can help support initiatives for peace?
Now, Madam President, in all of these three programs that you've mentioned, like you said, DRC, Somalia, Sudan, Central Sahel, more and more we see that civil society and even ordinary citizens are becoming more and more repressed or suppressed. How do you imagine OSF, through its partners, like you said, working through to achieve this mandate in the long term?
So I don't want to underestimate the difficulties that we're seeing, not just in Africa, but globally. We are seeing very volatile and dangerous times for those people who support issues of human rights, equity, and justice. But we also see huge opportunity, huge optimism amongst, and particularly in Africa, amongst young people, amongst women, amongst groups that have traditionally been excluded. What we are finding is there's new moral imagination, a will to reimagine the world we live in. And especially in young people, what I see is young people who've never lived in democratic spaces are actually speaking the language of open society and human rights, and that's very encouraging to see.
How do you hope that these new programs will reshape the future of Africa for Africans and precisely, Madam President, youth?
Open Society Foundations has provided support in Africa for decades. And we've done different kinds of work, consolidating democracy or freedom of the press or natural resource governance. What we have done today is we've made a recommitment to Africa around the key areas that we feel are coming up again and again and again when we talk to people in Africa. For myself, this is a very important thing. I'm from Kenya. I am actually seeing my own country having huge Gen Z protests in response to growing economic inequality, and the need for us to really find solutions that are peaceful and that allow for greater prosperity economically, because economic poverty is also destabilizing democracy in Africa.
How is OSF working to make sure that women and youth are represented across all these three programs and they benefit immensely? Do you have a sort of evaluation and monitoring mechanism put in place?
Open Society Foundations is extremely committed to the issue of inclusion, that we feel that societies cannot thrive unless everybody has a voice, including those that are historically marginalized. For the first time ever in history, women are graduating from university more than men. Give these young women graduates 10 years, and believe me, I think we're going to see quite an energetic group of women. We hope they will also move into politics. We've provided a $25 million fund to support women's political leadership.
Benyafa Noroji is the president of Open Society Foundations. And anytime you hear that whistle, we tell you that it's time for sports, and Sankole Janko is here with the details in the world of sports. Sankole, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon to you, and I can see that you're excited because you're anticipating a football game. But yes, let's go straight to the point, because you know it's WAFCON semi-final today. And your Ghana,
the Black Queens.
The Black Queens
are up against
the
host country.
Unfortunately, that doesn't sound well for you, because it's going to be 12 man or 12 women, I should say, against your Ghana. But let's get to the business. Of course, as you already said, Morocco will take on Ghana under the lights of Prince Moulay at the last stadium in Rabat on Tuesday for the second semi-final of the 2020 CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations. With a spot in the final online, both sides approach high-stakes encounter with constructing stories to share. Morocco is chasing the second straight final appearance in front of their home crowd, while Ghana aims to reclaim their status as a continental powerhouse after years of near misses. What do you think your chances are?
What is a lion before a queen?
Okay, I'm not going to say that. Let me just straight go to the next one. Of course, record WAFCON champions Nigeria will face reigning title holder South Africa in what is widely regarded as the fiercest rivalry in African women football at the moment. What do you make of that one as well? Because it's going to be a very, very, very fierce battle between Nigeria. Nigeria wants to reclaim being the best in the tournament, in the continent, and then South Africa is saying, no, it is our time.
Of course.
We are
and
here
you
to
see,
stay.
If you watch the tournament so closely, Nigeria has kept a clean sheet. They've kept a very impressive performance.
They have.
And this is like a revival of the country's football at this point in time.
Yes.
And South Africa also, the reigning champion.
Banyana, be careful, they are the reigning champions. So it promises to be a very interesting tie. Some will tell you they struggle against Senegal before winning into penalties. But finally, young Ivorian talent Amad Diallo of Manchester United has shared his excitement about the opportunity to play alongside Cameroon international Brian Bomo, who was recently signed by Manchester United. As a Chelsea fan, I'm not sure you're happy with that. But that's it for sports.
We're not afraid of any signings that Manchester United
Okay, so you say.
Thank you very much. And with that, we've come to the end of this afternoon's edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Many thanks for doing the listening, and many thanks to Fali Luso and Umu Danyogo for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook at WADR English Service. I am Christopher Aticho. Have a good afternoon and enjoy the rest of our broadcasts.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County.